Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Stoney.
Hello.
And Jason.
Hello, everyone.
Stoney wanted me to introduce him first today, so I just wanted to go ahead and call him out for that today. And then,
I missed about a month, and it seems like y'all forgot me.
I got into a new rhythm, and it's hard for me to break it. So we got a very special guest here. So why don't you guys roll out the red carpet for him?
Yeah, I've got a good friend of mine by the name of Todd Terrell, who is the president and founder of the United Cajun Navy. Welcome, Todd.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you for coming out, taking the long drive out here to the studio and seeing us. And
it's in the boondocks.
Thank you for coming out here and sharing what you do with us. I think we're going to help a lot of people understand what the Cajun Navy is, maybe how it came about, and what y'all are doing now. Okay. I'm excited about this episode.
Yeah, I've always been interested in how the whole Cajun Navy got started. I remember, the term come about during the Katrina era, if I recall right. But
now, Todd, you are the original founder of the real Cajun Navy, the original Cajun Navy, right?
You know, there's so many different stories about that. Mm-hmm. As time went on and social media came about and different things, we were not into social media like some of the newcomers were.
Okay.
You know, our thing was more of we were out there helping save lives and stuff. Mm-hmm. And my family was in the seafood business, so we had a lot of connections with boats and stuff. They just called us Cajun Navy. Mm-hmm. I remember we got a proclamation from Governor Blanco at the time, Kathleen Blanco, saying thanks for being a part of the Cajun Navy, and it was in quotation marks. And from there, I didn't know you had to go get paperwork done and stuff on there. We were just out helping people.
Right.
So we were there during Katrina, and it was some of the roughest times of my life.
If I can't remember the senator's name, but there was a senator that things were just hell after
Nick
Katrina.
Brissett.
Huh?
Nick.
Okay.
Brissett.
And he came out and said, we need civilians to help out. And I read an article a while, after that happened. He said, I was expecting 20 to 30 boats to show up. And he said 350 boats showed up. That was amazing.
That's correct.
Kind of gives you hope for the humanity, doesn't it?
The good thing about it was we were inside when those boats showed up. I think the original number that we saw was 117, and I never forget they deputized everybody pretty much that were going in.
Wow.
We were in there already with General Honore, Russell Honore.
Yep.
He was a Joint Task Force Katrina.
He was awesome, wasn't he? He was amazing.
Yeah, he was a mess. And he put a National Guardsman with a rifle on every one of our boats.
Okay.
And that's how bad it was. We were getting shot at. As everyone knows, there was 1,800 and something people that died. Some of them drowned. Some of them were medical issues. And unfortunately, a lot of people were shot.
Wow.
And, a lot of people know from the Superdome stuff that was going on. It was just mass chaos in there, and the darkness in there, and the ceiling falling down. There was a lot of unfortunate rapes going on, and there was nobody to help because there was a lot of gangs going on in there. And you couldn't really stop anybody from doing anything because you were overpowered. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of people have, when you have gangs and drug dealers in neighborhoods, there's like turf wars going on. And over there, they had no drugs, they had no money, they had no customers because everybody they lost everything.
Right.
So it was mass hysteria for a good 7 to 10 days.
That time was such chaos.
Yes.
I just remember just the lines of the traffic, just in the area where I live, just the streets being completely at a standstill. It's almost like an apocalyptic war, like a movie. I mean, I remember just coming out of my neighborhood and just looking and like there's just lines of cars and they're all over the place. They're stopped. Nobody can move anywhere. They're all trying to get gasoline because they're all coming in from all these affected areas. And it was like they're walking. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, it was absolutely nuts at that time. And, thank God there are people who kind of answered the bell, so to speak, that, and went out there because, the government was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I mean, it shows you the inherent limitations of government. I mean, that really, well, and you think about it, that was just Katrina. As bad as that was a small area. How about if all of a sudden you've got multiple areas like that?
Like that's
What would
happening right
happen?
now. We got stuff happening in California. We got stuff happening in Hawaii. We got stuff happening in Florida right now. Sadly, to me, the government is not the answer. The government is not here to solve our problems. The Cajun Navy seems like it found a niche and started helping people no matter what the situation, no matter what it is. I found out something today, and I mean, everybody knows I had my accident, and I kind of been out of touch a little bit, but I found out today that the Cajun Navy is in Hawaii. Yes. Can you tell us about what y'all are doing? That is
wow.
That's amazing.
So Hawaii is part of the United States.
Sure.
And when we found out what was going on over there, immediately we have a mass casualty chaplain and a mass casualty counselor that is part of us. Mm-hmm. And our main guy, Tony Dickey, he's 35 years Alabama State Police. And he's also with the Franklin Graham Ministries, mm-hmm. and he also works with the Red Cross as a minister. He goes over there, and he knows how to deal with families when sometimes there's no closure, and sometimes closure is no closure. And he knows how to work with the families and the parents and stuff. What's going on in Hawaii is, you have loved ones that you lost. They're in the rubble. You'll never find them. Some of them jumped into the ocean and drowned. You lost all your houses. You lost everything. You don't have a phone. You don't have your money. You don't have a mailbox. You have nothing. So we're able to go over there and send him over there and help these people out.
Right.
He came back from Uvalde school shooting last year. He did the mass casualty stuff over there. And the Miami building collapse, because in Miami there was a lot of people that were never found, unfortunately, mm-hmm. because of the collapse. So, and there's so much in Hawaii because it's a resort town, and the show goes on in some mm-hmm. of the surrounding villages and all, and right. islands over there, But I want to get back to something we were talking about, Katrina, because this is important. A lot of people don't know about this. 2004, there was a Hurricane Pam, and I don't know if you heard about that before. Hurricane Pam was a state. It was like a preparedness plan that they did. It was the worst disaster that our country was having, like disasters all over the state, 15 foot of water in the city. And it was a plan that the state did in 2004 called Hurricane Pam. And it was supposed to be the worst disaster that we hit, how we would handle it. Fast forward a year later, and
Hurricane
Katrina. So when you go back to the government and you go back to things, you can only plan for so much, mm-hmm. But this thing here, the millions of dollars they spent on this plan, it looks like nobody was paying attention. Nobody was in school today. They were doing this plan out, So if you ever look into it, Hurricane Pam, 2004.
Okay.
It was a.
I still think Katrina is the costliest U.S. disaster.
I believe.
Yes.
I think I saw
standing.
a chart
Yes.
just recently on that, which is actually pretty incredible. Since Katrina, that's been a while back now.
Yeah,
yes.
We've had a lot of disasters.
You look at the money.
A very short term after that, the little half of one cat hurricane that went to New York, they tried to bill as the storm of the century.
Superstorm Sandy,
oh my
yeah.
God. They tried to bill that, and it just didn't.
Well, a lot of people also forget about Rita.
Because
Rita hit right after Katrina.
Yes.
I believe it went around Lake Charles area, mm-hmm. if I recall right.
Well, when you get back to the Hurricane Pam, where you had your planning that the state was doing, we had over 200 school buses and city buses that flooded in New Orleans. They didn't get them up on the interstate. They didn't get them up on that elevated portion. So that was a big reason why a lot of people drowned. They had no way to get the buses out because the buses were all flooded. So if you rewind to Hurricane Pam and that disaster preparedness plan, they should have had that in plan. So that's when the Cajun Navy really became a portion because of some of the failed issues that the government didn't do, and that's why they needed us.
Okay. Look like Ian was going to say something right quick.
Can you believe that Katrina was almost 20 years ago?
I know.
That's what I'm saying.
Crazy.
For it to still be the costliest U.S. disaster, it's 20 years. We've had a lot of disasters in 20 years.
Yes, we have.
Can you imagine the dollar value that would be today?
Ooh.
Well, I'm gonna tell you. That's I remember talking to some people actually from Miami, and I still don't think people really understand the scope of what that disaster was. I try to tell them. I said, imagine Miami, Florida, underwater. Mm-hmm. And once they kind of start thinking about what that looks like, because no one else has ever experienced that.
Right.
Well,
I mean, they really
the year
have
before
it.
Katrina, Florida had 5 hurricanes. One of them hit them twice.
But I don't think they had the
It wasn't as bad. It wasn't a Katrina, but when you have that many storms coming one after the other, after the other, that's a mess.
yeah,
Yes, that you're right.
their cities though don't seem to be as vulnerable to what New Orleans is vulnerable to. I just
Miami might be.
I don't know
yeah.
where Miami
But
sits as
New
far as
Orleans
sea
is a
level
bowl.
or not.
It's 6 foot below sea level, surrounded by a levee.
Yeah. And
when
Baton
the
Rouge is getting just as bad now.
And you know, a
'cause-
lot of the pumps in New Orleans aren't working. And
well,
a lot
they
of people don't
failed
know that.
during
And
Katrina.
they failed during Katrina
The
too.
cows and the human bodies were getting wedged into the pumps and stopped the pumps from working, and that made it even worse.
I had heard that the reason the pumps failed in Katrina, and now I don't know if this story is true or not, but when the evacuation order went out, the people that were supposed to actually activate the pumps evacuated.
That's correct. That's the true story.
So that is true.
That's a
Okay,
true
well
story.
then which doesn't make sense to me. And the same thing I heard with the buses. That's why there were all these buses sitting around with no drivers because they sent everybody out of the city, and it's like that's not what this was supposed to be. You keep your essential people back, make sure you do what you got to do, but that didn't happen. There's a lot of things that happened that
There's a lot of judgment calls that were made.
Unfortunately,
it was a lot of bad calls.
Unfortunately, Katrina and things like Katrina, they bring out the best, obviously.
Yep.
We have somebody sitting here that brings out the best, but it also brings out the worst in people too. And that's unfortunate. But I want to talk about some of the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you met and run into anybody that you helped in Katrina?
Yes. And
See, I
some of
want
the-
to know about that a little bit.
I can tell you some stories. There was an elderly black couple, and they had sat on the side of their house on the overhang of their porch for 2 days. And they had some snakes and spiders in there. They were tore up pretty good. This guy had a bite on him, looked like a bowling ball.
Oh, my.
And they were there for 2 days before we came and got them. And we felt bad because we didn't have room in the boat, so we gave them some medicine and some water, and we came back and got them. And it was about 10 years later. Actually, I ran into them in New Orleans. And the guy came up to me and cried, and he had a little grandbaby. And he showed me his scar on his leg where he had to have all the stuff cut out from the snake. And he said that, he just couldn't imagine, especially a white person coming into the hood and saving him, especially like we did. I'll tell you another story. We've got some really crazy stories. We've had 2 instances during Harvey and one during Katrina where the parents were dead in the house and the babies were babies in the crib in 3 foot of water, and we had to get a plastic Rubbermaid tote and float them out.
Oh, my.
And, we ran into those, they were teenagers, a few years ago. One story that really kicks out recently from Hawaii is there was an 88-year-old lady, and she jumped into the ocean to escape the fire. Couldn't swim, lived in Hawaii all her life. And when they asked her, what did she think about it? And she said she was crying, and she said she lived all her life, went to church, prayed, believed in God, did the right thing, raised some good kids. She said she had thought she died and went to hell, and she couldn't understand it. And so when you hear these stories like that, it really, really, it's surreal about how, life can be so short. And also to think about these poor old people that go all these years, and then, like this lady, she thought she was in hell, So we run into people all the time. We had some people in 2016 that were elderly that we rescued, and then they stay in touch with us all the time. There's a couple of military veterans that are in their 90s that we rescued, and they stay up with us all the time. So it's pretty cool to go back and see people that you've actually helped save their lives.
Right. You've affected people's lives.
And some of these people we could have left behind. I mean, these older people, we could have left them behind, but, we risked our lives to go back in and get them. During Katrina, I almost lost my leg. I had an infection so bad that we found a hose pipe, and I found some Bactroban in somebody's house that was torn up, and we found some saran wrap, and we poured the Bactroban on it and wrapped it in saran wrap. And 2 days later, it looked like a cow leg or elephant leg. It was so big. So, we risk our lives sometimes, but, I believe God protects us, and I think there's people to help.
Wow.
That's incredible. I mean,
Man.
gee.
I remember going into some areas during Harvey and Katrina, and these were some bad areas. You wouldn't go in there in the daytime on a Sunday, and we told the people get in the boat with us, and they were looking at us like we were crazy, and we get in the boat with us. These were some bad gangsters. And I'll never forget some of them we had in the boat with us, and they stared at us the whole time. I don't know what they thought we were going to do with them, but we were just trying to help them.
Well, they're not. Their world is completely shattered, and,
That's
and
right.
here you're this outsider coming in. They don't trust you to begin with,
Right.
and so. But hey, that's how bridges are made, and who knows?
Exactly.
Who knows? Maybe that may have done something. Maybe changed the way they thought about certain things. So.
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
It's crazy.
Wow.
I mean, what else is going on in Hawaii? I mean, is there any?
Well, a lot of rumors about how the fire started.
Yeah, kind of. What is the on the ground talk right now over there? I mean,
I don't get into conspiracy theories, but I can tell you this much. The way the facts are looking, it looks like there was some electrical problems with some of the lines. It looks like some of the lines were either intentionally cut or left down. And there's a lot of weird pictures out there and stories out there that there was a lot of fires around down power lines. And then, of course, you hear these stories about, Oprah Winfrey and all these other people wanting to buy up the island and buy up the houses. And then you see all these people, if your houses have been burned in Hawaii, Maui, and you don't want to go back, we'll buy the houses. So there's a lot of rumors about stuff, and sometimes it's extrapolating what's true and what's not, and then you look at some of the pictures where you have a house that was not touched and everything around it is just fried and leveled, So it kind of makes you wonder about what really happened over there.
Right.
I don't think we'll really ever know.
Well, if we have any more people there, could you get me some pictures of anything blue that's left untouched, please? Because I have some thoughts on the due system that I would like to. I am a conspiracy theorist, and I have a feeling that the due system was used, and the due system is a very bad laser satellite system, and blue is not harmed by the laser.
That's correct.
And there's a lot of blue cars. I love the picture of the umbrellas that's left up there. And some of the houses, miraculously in the last year, have been painted blue. Oprah Winfrey's being one of them.
And the garbage cans, the blue garbage cans that are around there. I got to be careful what I say right now because I don't have anything blue on, and I'm scared that.
And
that
just for the record here, I would like to say on the air that none of us are suicidal. None of us are planning on committing suicide in the future. So if it happens, please, contact my friends at law enforcement and let them know I did not commit suicide.
Hopefully, none of us are targets of that sort of activity, but you never know in today's world.
On your feedback, or with this Hawaii situation, I imagine people are completely devastated. Is there any hope over there right now? Is there anything? Because you hear all of this stuff, even like FEMA not letting helpful. When I found out y'all were there, I was like, they're stopping everybody from helping. FEMA's not letting anybody there. Then you find out that they weren't letting anybody leave.
Yes. So what we're doing over there with our chaplain, he's doing counseling, and he's helping people with families, what they need to do with funerals and stuff. Because like I said, sometimes closure is no closure. And when you have a loved one that's lost in a fire and there's no hope of getting them out, you might not even know where they're at. They might have drowned. You just need to help the families. FEMA and the government is not set up for those kind of things.
No,
you would think they would be. Just like with the Red Cross. I mean, they're made to go in there and do their little thing and kind of get out, They offered everybody $700.
I heard
the
that.
family's $700. I mean, that's kind of a slap in
Offered
the
$700 for what?
Their house. Everything. That's the amount of money they were given to help them in this situation.
Yes.
Offered, not given, offered to them.
And you look at the people on that island, it's not that many compared to $700,
What is the casualty? Do we know a number? Because I remember the interview with the mayor or the governor of Hawaii, or didn't know, or
it's over 100.
He seemed pretty clueless when.
Oh, they expect it to be around 1,800, but right now they're saying it's between 100 and 150.
And the reason they're saying that is because that's how many bodies they've actually found. When you have people missing and there's no body found, they don't count that as a death.
Wouldn't they be burned up?
Or
not the ones that jumped in the ocean and
jumped in the
disappeared.
ocean, or if you got a bunch of rubble, You
Right.
can't go through that rubble.
It says so far 115 people have been declared dead.
That means they found them
in connection with the fires.
Now, the schools over there, we're doing a lot with the schools with supplies and stuff. There's over 3,000 people or kids registered to schools, and I think only like either 400 to 600 have actually gone back to schools. So there's no clarification on where the 2,400 are. So that's why they're thinking there's a lot more dead, especially children.
Wow.
God, that's horrible.
Now, they also had some reports of the Marines going in to supposedly help and finding over 282 bullet-riddled bodies. Have you heard anything? Has anybody come to you with something like that?
We've heard about it. Unfortunately, there's not much we can do about that.
Right.
We've heard the stories. Not sure where that's going or what happened.
Well, FEMA wasn't letting people leave. They
That's
were
correct.
giving directives not to leave. And then when you look back over the last time that the government decided to buy a lot of ammo to make the shortage of the Second Amendment ammo in America, FEMA bought over 750 million rounds of ammunition. And you're wondering, why would FEMA do that? Why would health and hospitals need 500 million rounds of ammunition?
IRS.
The IRS. Now, of course, they're coming out with 87,000 new armed agents, and you have to wonder what's going on there. So when you hear this kind of thing and you've got 1,000 FEMA agents already in Hawaii before the incident in $2,000 room hotels instead of going to the $250 room hotels, and then all of a sudden you start hearing stuff like this. This makes me do the old Arsenio Hall thing, things that make you go,
Yes, that's
This
correct.
makes me go, because I want to know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, Todd, it's
then you see people like
you
Oprah
got to
Winfrey.
know. I mean,
And then you hear
something's
like
going
Oprah
on.
Winfrey going over there. Why all of a sudden did she just pop her head over there in Hawaii when there's all kind of other stuff going on?
Well, she's over the last 2 or 3 years, she's bought over 1,000 acres in that same area. So has Jeff Bezos. So has a couple of other of these billionaires. In our last episode, we had our 100th episode we recorded that dropped yesterday. We talked about things about that and how far away Hawaii is from America with the shit's hitting the fan here in America, and they want to start the first AI self-sustaining city in Maui.
That's correct.
Maybe, but I think it's also probably just rich people not understanding the context of the situation, just capitalizing on that. I think that's more so what it is. Probably.
Well, rich people are going to be the ones that go. Only rich people are going to be able to buy here and come here.
I think people of that in that level of society, just like I mentioned, I believe in last episode, their interaction with the government is completely different.
I'm not saying
From us.
I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I do think that more so what it is if an island paradise was to all of a sudden go under, and of course everyone's evacuating, and like there's gonna be a whole new fresh start. It doesn't surprise me that the wealthiest of wealthy people are buying up the island paradise, stuff, so that way they can sell it later for profit. Like, I mean, you're right. It could be a special oasis for the rich elite, but I really don't think so. I really think they're just buying up all that land so that way whenever it grows back over, they can build their nice hotels on it, and before you know it, they're
there's already the plan
budget.
for the city. The city, they tried to buy these properties from these people a year and a half ago, and they said no. And so, the city's already in the planning stage.
Right.
Well, the EMA director quit. He resigned from over there, and there was a lot of rumors about the fire, the warning system that was going off, where they didn't cut the the warning system off. And his word for that was he didn't want everybody panicking and going towards the sirens or going towards the fire. And I mean, common sense tells you if you hear the warnings going off, look outside and see the smoke, don't go to it.
Right.
So that story wasn't plausible. So he resigned pretty good. They said because of the pressure. And if we got a government official that's resigning over pressure from a disaster, we got the wrong people in there.
Yes, we did. Well, who was the chief of police? You know
That's
who the
correct.
chief of police was, right?
I don't believe I do.
Oh, the same guy that was the chief of police in the Las Vegas shooting that
that's
covered
correct.
it up. He was the chief of police in Maui, who they had just gotten rid of the director and given him a $50,000 bonus. Is that to cover up another one?
I should have worn my blue outfit today.
I'm thinking about starting to paint all my vehicles blue. I think Hottie Doctor and I are going to get one of those blue roofs for our house. And
Does it matter what kind of blue?
it's cobalt blue. You need to be as close to cobalt blue as you can.
Okay.
I love how now when you're going to be able to drive around and tell who the conspiracy theorists are. You're going to drive around and go like, oh yeah, he's
They're in blue.
I'm scared
he has
to
a
sit-
blue roof on his house. Look at him go.
I'm scared of sitting next to Jason with his bald head. He
It'll bounce off. It'll reflect. It'll reflect.
No,
It'll reflect back out in the atmosphere.
But yeah, so it's no telling what happened. I don't think we'll ever know the story.
I don't either.
About what happened.
I agree with you 100%.
And those are some. Hawaii has a lot of culture and a lot of history, and I mean they're different than us over here. But God bless them. I mean it's just it's a shame.
Yes, it is.
I just feel like this same thing would happen if if a catastrophe was to happen in like another big. Like a big area like that's so iconic, you know what I mean? Like if something in like Los Angeles or in Europe or somewhere like in Europe or in New York, even like if something like tragic was to happen, I wouldn't be surprised if like Jeff Bezos was like, or like people like that just like jump on the opportunity to make more money. Obviously, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just what
I
it
think
feels
at that level, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Ian.
I mean, you're right.
I mean, look, I know you don't really kind of go down that rabbit hole as much as we
Right.
do, and
We like the rabbit hole. don't we, Jason?
I think there's reason why we feel that way because maybe we've just seen more to kind of make us think that there's something else going on.
right.
But
I-
I mean,
I-
depends on the disaster. Now, I mean,
Right.
think about it. I mean, all these disasters, flood, tornado, whatever the case may be, earthquake, fire. The only one that to me would be the real challenge, and I don't know how. And Todd, y'all may have discussed this already, amongst your group and how your group would respond. What about if it's a nuclear?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's.
I
something
mean,
that's really brings it
if it's a
apart.
radiological event where now we can't go in there,
Right.
the whole area is completely just off limits.
Right.
I mean,
that brings up a good point. When you talk about the government versus groups like Cajun Navy, people don't trust the government. And we have a lot of reasons to not trust the government. And when you look at a lot of the things that are going on, like the Las Vegas school shooting, they never did tell us the whole story about that. We never did find out what went on. You look at the as Trump would say, the China balloons. Nobody ever told us what happened there. Mm-hmm. All we know is there was a bunch of Chinese balloons that flew over our country. So nobody has trust in the government because either they're hiding something from us or they just don't know. Mm-hmm. And either way, that's scary. As citizens, that is scary.
Well, one of the things here recently is that a lot of people have been talking about climate control and the fact that they have proven that fossil fuels aren't really what's hurting the climate right now. Greece has just arrested 20-something people for starting fires claiming climate control. How many other people have been arrested across Europe? And I think it's around 100. I wish I would have brought. I wish we were going down this road because I have a climate control packet that I'm working on.
Right.
That people are being arrested for starting fires to prove that the world is warming up, and it's causing fires. America has arrested a few too.
Well, yeah, the fires out in Louisiana, it's arson.
It's arson.
If you look it up, yeah, they had, and I don't want to say exactly which started because people will be listening. The next thing you know, they'll be, throwing rolls of toilet paper in the woods. But,
Right.
is that what the latest is on the fires? I believe
Yes.
was it Beauregard? I think I saw in the news.
Sabine Parish,
Beauregard
Parish, yeah,
Yep.
DeRitter, all
Yeah.
up in there, Maryville, Singer. It was arson, and there's so many crazy people in the world nowadays. And I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just,
Well, no, there is a lot of crazy people.
right.
well,
out
let's just
there.
say there's
I mean,
crazy people out there.
Yeah,
But
it's people just capitalizing, I think, on an unfortunate situation, and that's again, I'm just trying to be devil's advocate and have a difference of opinion. I'm not saying that there isn't probably some kind of like nefarious relationship with the government that the rich elite probably have. I do believe there probably is something that I don't know about. But I'm also thinking like if I bring them down a peg and make them all just humans like I am, I feel like it's just they're insensitive people that are just capitalizing on an unfortunate situation.
Well, what I can do for you is I'll give you the Jeffrey Epstein list. I can give you the list of people, and you'll look at its politicians and these same stars.
You're right, and I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to jump down the rabbit hole. But like I agree with you. There are suspicious stuff happening out there that is outside of my control, and I will never understand because I'll never be connected with that. But what I'm saying is, yes, if you think on a human level, there probably is nefarious stuff out there. But I think at its core fundamentals, I think it is people that are just trying to make money. Is what it always is, I think. I mean, and now again, there could be bigger plans in the future for something bigger, but that's what it feels like to me.
I'm telling you, I mentioned this in our last episode. I just feel like there's something different. Society has changed. Something is just different about America now. And as I say, there's no way I can't put my finger on it and say that's it or that's it.
I put my finger on it last episode.
I know you did, but
I feel like Elmer Fudd with the rabbit hole thing. I feel like I'm sitting with a gun waiting for somebody to come out the hole.
I feel like there's just things are just not right.
And you know when it started? I believe a lot of it started with social media.
Social
media is the greatest thing in the world. It's the worst thing in the world.
You're right.
Well, we went through that cyber stalking a few years ago. Yep. We were fighting it, and I said it in court. And there's a lot of articles that quoted me. It's like fighting a boogeyman. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't even know who these people were. I mean, it's just like
there's a lot of people out there with huge internet balls. That wouldn't do that if they were standing right in front of you. But they're sitting behind that computer on the little keyboard, and they can be who they want to be and say what they want to say.
We fought one of them. Well, we got some protective orders, and there's some things I can't say. We were fighting people that had over 200 aliases. Mm-hmm. So you think you got 200 people coming after you, and you just got one knucklehead. And they've got you can go buy a profile on Facebook, for instance, that's 10, 15 years old. And it makes it look like you've got an existing account. Mm-hmm. Right. So social media has been the greatest thing. It's been the worst thing. And right now with AI, a lot of the stuff coming out about the next election, and there's something out there right now. You can go Google Trump, Biden AI debate. And you can read their lips. It looks like they're talking bad about each other. It's
called a DPAC.
Yes.
It's called a DPAC. Yes.
And I think that's going to be a big problem coming up for the next election too. Is this? You're not going to believe what you're going to see.
Well, I'm going to tell you, if we're going to devolve into that where you're not going to be able to believe it, then everything is just going to start falling apart because if we can't trust, some basic fundamental things, then it's over with, fellas. I mean, it's done.
I hate to say I told you so, but I've been talking about AI being a problem for how long? 4 months now.
Yeah, it's not just AI. I know what
you're right.
What Todd's talking about, and that is a deep hack. That is beyond.
You call that what you call a deep hack? Deep hack. Okay,
yes, that's a deep hack.
Okay,
but what I'm not even talking about. That's what I'm saying. It's like that is the beginning. That is the slippery slope that is then going to, in a few months when the election comes around. The thing is, like I'm having a hard time believing if pictures are real now, or if things you write and stuff. So it's
absolutely.
I'm hearing now that there's going to be another strain of COVID, and it's fixing to be worse than the one before, and we're going to be right back to where we were back in 2020.
You can look at the government, and they're already planning, and this is not a debate. This is not conspiracy. They're already planning to have the mask mandates back by Thanksgiving with a complete COVID shutdown by the first of the year.
Oh, gee. I mean, that's,
I don't think it's going to happen this time because they just had 14 states pass the anti-vax mandate and say it's illegal.
I have a hard time feeling that it's going to...
Well, with COVID, and you had all these government programs where they gave people to pay them to not work, and this, that, and the other, and we've created a generation now that is just doesn't want to work.
Yeah,
right.
But
this is something. Now we just spoke about COVID, and I was reading a couple of articles about the Cajun Navy, y'all have been helping people out with COVID and COVID supplies and things like that also, haven't y'all?
Yes. So 2 years ago, we got in gazillions of millions of masks. People trust us with donations to give out. And we gave away so many masks and sanitizer, a couple years ago. The problem was some of the masks and all we were giving away were government-funded programs that almost looked like you were wearing a pair of underwear on your head.
Okay.
So, and a lot of people didn't know about stuff. Hanes and some big companies were making masks out of scraps. They really wasn't doing anything to protect people.
Right.
No.
So, we kind of got into a situation where we didn't know. We were going what the government told us, and that's when we really realized that something ain't right here. But hand sanitizer was and disinfectant was some of the main things that we really got into because that's something with alcohol in it, everybody needs.
Sure.
What's happening now with school kids and LSU especially, all of a sudden COVID is on the rise. It's hot. Nobody wants to go outside and work anymore. They're staying in the air conditioning, they're sweating, they're snotty, they opening the handle. So, back in the day, it used to be the cold. Your mom or your daddy, your grandma or whatever would say, wash your hands, don't touch your nose, don't touch nobody's hands. And it's like we've gone away from that.
Right.
Common sense tells you just be careful. Grocery baskets and stuff, and so many people are just nasty nowadays. You go in these stores and you see the plastic thing up there between your cashier and you, and it looks like 100 people done sneezed on it and nobody cleaned it off. So a lot of stuff that we're dealing with too is just basic hygiene.
Well, that's not really taught very much anymore.
Well, that's what happened with the plague and all of these things when people started talking about let's just be more hygienic and then you'd solve this and then they'd go right back to it and something else would hit them.
That's correct.
The flu. How many 40 million people died of the flu? When was that, baby? When did all them people die because of the flu? All this stuff.
Talking about the Spanish flu?
Yeah, the Spanish flu.
Oh, it's like 1918 or something?
1912,
yeah,
I believe. I think it was 1912.
Yeah,
but
30 million people died.
You know how they cured that?
Ian, look that up real quick. I think it's 1918.
They told people be sanitized.
You know how they stopped that from what I'm hearing? They put
the Spanish flu.
Outside. Yeah. They put hospital beds outside and they put tents outside. And the sun cured them. I mean, it got them away from inside.
Yeah.
But, we've created another thing, getting back to social media.
1918.
Okay, 1918.
Yeah.
And it said it ended
Jason,
in
you showing your age.
1920.
You know that kind of stuff. What month was it?
February.
What time of
just
day
making
was
fun
it?
of Jason.
What time, Jason? What time of day was it?
You're
I
old
don't
when
know
you
that.
say
Yeah.
I just somehow remembered 1918.
I'm going to say something kind of funny now. This, Todd, hopefully you'll be one of our avid listeners now, and you'll start listening when you're driving and flying around. But this is the second show in a row that Jason has not had a stack 3 inches of information in front of him.
You're right.
And research and books and everything else. So,
Well, I'm just y'all got me drinking this coffee. I don't drink coffee, so I'm trying to figure out what's in that coffee. So,
this is actually, and I'm going to give a little.
Is that, yeah, go ahead,
This is Volcanica Coffee Company. This is Kopi Luwak. This is what we affectionately call poo-poo coffee on the show. It's actually eaten by the civets and pooped out. And then they process the coffee just like they do because it's in a cherry. And they pull the bean out, and the enzymes of it do something to it. And it's actually, we think, we like it.
It is the most expensive coffee in the world. So you're right now drinking the most expensive cup of coffee in the world.
Well, I can tell you this much. I put about 20 sugar cubes in it, and all I taste is coffee still. So
there you go.
All right.
It's strong.
Is it at least good? It's at least good, though, right?
The last sip I had was about 2 minutes ago, and I still got the caffeine taste.
Okay. Well, there we go.
I'm not going to sleep for a couple of days.
There you go.
Yeah, we hopefully one day we'll be able to say Volcanica, the official coffee company of the Retrospect podcast.
That's right.
I can't do that, but I can for sure say we're drinking Kopi Luwak, brought to you by Volcanica.
There we
you
go.
go.
How about that?
That's we're not sponsored to say that, but that is a fact.
Or maybe they'll pick it up.
Because we definitely had champagne last episode. It was very nice.
I was speaking with Ian before the show, and I'm getting ready to order another bag of coffee from them.
Speaking of Hawaii,
yes,
he's talking about
it's a Kona. Volcanica be looking like I'll be spending some money with y'all soon. So.
Okay. And what really sucks about all of this is a little over 2 months ago, I had an accident. And I busted my head, and I'm completely deaf in my left ear. And tragically, I have no sense of smell or sense of taste right now,
Oh,
so
you got
I really
COVID.
can't. No. What's the nerve? The ocular, olfactory nerve has either been severed, broken, or whatever, and so now all I taste or smell is burnt ass, sulfur, metal.
Burnt
You
ass.
said burnt ass?
That's what everything tastes like now.
Golly.
So it's terrible, and I'm not enjoying life right now. This is nuts.
Yeah.
So I was not able to enjoy the champagne that they got
yeah.
last week. So
We had a nice bottle of Veuve Clicquot, which, by the way, there's still a little bit in the fridge if you guys want.
Okay.
But it was, yeah.
Y'all didn't offer none from me. Y'all offered coffee.
Well, I mean, I can get you some if you want. It was our 100th episode, so I felt like I had to make it special.
Oh,
so
shoot. Well, I have to make the 200.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right. So, is there any other interesting stories that you can share with us about your time now with the Cajun Navy and interesting people you've met and stuff like that? Can you share some of that with us?
You know, we've gotten so big with supplies. For instance, Christmas last year, we gave out 165,000 jackets, brand new jackets to people in 4 states, Ukraine and Turkey.
Impressive.
We gave out 125,000 toys in 4 states. We have a lot of events that we do where we do fundraisers. We just did a big fundraiser in Vero Beach a couple months ago for some veterans. And then we did a fundraiser 2 weeks ago, or actually last weekend, where we had a 24-hour bike ride for a group called After the Mission, and they raise money for veterans and law enforcement officers. Because as a lot of people know, Louisiana leads the nation in police officer deaths this year, 7. And we also had 2 people from Bay St. Louis, police officers that they were actually murdered. So they were actually there. And these guys rode bikes they rode 24 hours, 265 miles, 250 to 265 miles. They tricked me. So we left Baton Rouge at the state capitol at 12 o'clock, and we went to Walker first, and then Albany, and we had about 6 stops. And I said, I was just getting over COVID myself, and so I said, y'all give me about 8 miles, 6 or 8 miles warning before we got to, the Wrigley's from Slidell. And I wasn't paying attention. We was in the chase vehicle behind them in the motorhome, and they said, hurry up and get on the bike, hurry up and get on the bike. So they stopped, pulled a bike out. Well, I rode, and it seemed like, I'm looking at my watch, it's like 15 minutes. And I said, are we there yet? They said, you got 16 more miles to go. I said, oh, no, kidding. Well, they scammed me. They 25 miles I rode.
Okay.
And so we raised money for, police officers and veterans there after the mission. It was a group. So we do a lot of fundraising stuff. We've actually working with a couple of big singers. Jelly Roll is one of them. Hopefully we can have a concert with him next year. We've got a couple of things. There's a guy called Redneck Adventures, Jim Bob Allgood. We've got some shows that we're working trying to get up in Brandon Amphitheater up in Brandon, Mississippi with some people. So we just do a lot of fundraising for people. We work with a group called Grandparents Raising Grandchildren, because that's a big thing in today's society.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's huge. And just for everybody to know, so many grandparents are in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s that are having to raise grandkids nowadays because of incarceration, drugs, or, single parents. So, can you imagine being an 80-year-old grandparent having to deal with some little snotty-nosed bad kids and the grandparents, they got a flip phone if they got a phone. Right now, the kids are having to have Apple phones, and the next thing you know, the kids get mad and they run away, they steal, they do drugs or whatever. So that's a big problem in today's society. The other thing is veterans. There's a lot of veterans that are forgotten. We haven't had a war in quotation marks in many years. Vietnam and even some of the wars afterwards, or it don't even have to be a war, just the veterans coming back. It's kind of like they're outcast now.
We lose, I think, 25 a day to suicide, and that's just unbelievable.
It's just something. There's just
and
something.
that brings back a thing. Last year, I had my first experience with that. We had a veteran. He's a Marine, and he's kind of crazy a little bit. Let's just say he's really crazy.
Okay.
And he came back, and he's the one that yeehaw, in 6 foot of water, swimming with a horse on his back in the middle of a hurricane. And look what I did! I saved this guy and his 2 dogs. Well, he called me crying, and to see this big, burly veteran crying and saying, "I just want to tell you, you saved my life." He said, "Thank you. You gave me a purpose." Damn. And the flip side, 2 days later, he started drinking again, and next thing you know, they calling me saying, he's out of control. So, some of these guys and girls went overseas and they fought and they came home and their spouse left them, the family left them, and they came home with nothing. And a lot of times we have one Marine, this guy, he was in Fallujah and he's badass. He came back to this, and like he was saying is he's want to know why he fought for our country to come back to this. After 13 years, things kind of changed a little bit. So we do a lot of that. A lot of orphan kids and stuff we deal with. And, getting back to the single parents right now, a lot of mothers especially that are working 2 and 3 jobs, to go give them a jacket for their kids or whatever, or, school clothes or whatever, it's a blessing. So we've been fortunate. A lot of people think it's a Cajun Navy is just somebody that goes and rescues in boats. And unfortunately, not every storm, or fortunately, every storm doesn't need a boat rescue.
Sure.
Hurricane Michael was strictly just trees and chainsaws.
That was
and
a
stuff.
Category 5 hurricane.
That was a serious one. And I'll never forget that.
That was in Mexico Beach?
It hit Mexico Beach area.
Yeah.
We have a real ambulance, and it's our mobile command, but it's a working ambulance. And I'll never forget, I was driving that thing 2 days after the storm through Mexico Beach, and there was a lady that was stuck in her house for 2.5 days. A tree had fallen on her, and part of the branch was through her, and she was almost dead. And we had these 3 doctors from Johns Hopkins Hospital that had flown in, trauma surgeons. And they put her in there, and they put a tarp up in there where I couldn't see in the back. And me, I was nosy. I kind of pulled the tarp back, and all I saw was blood everywhere. And they saved her life. And I really saw how these trauma nurses and stuff are really, really needed. So what we do is we go in with our own resources. We go in with our own supplies and fuel and medical people, because we don't want to be a burden on the system. And a lot of times first responders, their houses are in trouble. They have trees on them. They can't get to work. So the first thing we do is go in there and try to work with first responders and say, okay, how many law enforcement guys you got? Are their houses in trouble? We need to tarp their house. We need to make sure they get to work, or we need to make here. Because we're all human, and if you're a police officer and your house is flooded or trees on it and you're at work, you're not really worried about your job.
No, you're worried about your house.
Yeah, so we go in and do that. In Florida, we've really been a big help to Florida with that kind of stuff. Hurricane Michael, AT&T was down. They had no service. So we came in with some whole school flip phone, Verizon phones, and gave it to them. And when you see a police officer that's been 20, 30 years on the force come crying and saying he can't get in touch with his family, he don't know where to go, it's real.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of things through the years that we've learned. When you talk about the government, we try to get along with them. FEMA wants everybody to take these certification classes and different things like that, and sometimes they're needed. But reality is the government has their way of doing things, and our way of doing things is
well, the private world and the government world.
The government
totally
world and
two
the private
different
world
animals.
never fits. And I've had them say, we don't have this certification to run a pod, which is a point of distribution. We have 18-wheelers coming in with toiletries and personal items and toilet paper and stuff, and they're going to sit there and say, because we don't have a certification, we can't give out stuff. So we'll just go set up at a church or something somewhere, and next thing you know,
everybody's coming to you.
Yeah, The government is good at giving out water and MREs and ice.
Right.
That's what they're good at during a disaster. So, like I tell everybody, don't count on FEMA to rebuild your house. It's not going to happen.
No.
It's not going to happen.
No, Miranda was telling me that when I guess it was the flood came, she flooded, and y'all came and saved her and got her and her family out. But the Red Cross came in, and they weren't letting other supplies come in. They were refusing to let anybody in this area, FEMA and the Red Cross and everything. And then they were giving out 2 chicken nuggets, a scoop of red beans, and a roll, and that's what they were expecting people to live on.
Yeah, and
and that's just ridiculous to me.
We try to coexist with everybody, and not I don't try to bash anybody or whatever.
Sure.
I can tell you during the 2016 flood, we were bringing everybody to the Celtic Center over there by Costco.
Yep.
And we had nowhere else to bring them. I mean, and we brought thousands of people over there. Next thing you know, we're bringing these people there, and they're hungry. They have nothing to eat.
Right.
Next thing you know, background is seafood business and restaurants. We called some caterers and stuff and said, hey, we need some food. Next thing you know, you have restaurants and stuff coming in there and cooking for thousands of people for a couple of days. The Red Cross came in there after the second day and made us all leave. And they said we wasn't certified because they were taking that shelter over by the state. So we learned our lesson with them. And so people were complaining about the food. They were eating basically Beanie Weenies and a couple of chicken patties.
Wow.
So we went up and set up behind Costco, and we had people coming from the Celtic Center behind Costco getting the food from us. And so that's when we learned really, really quick that, we have to just do our own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was why, to be honest with you, when we were talking about having you on, that I really wanted to have you here and we could find out what really the Cajun Navy is about. Because it's not just about saving people, which is so important, but it's about the physical and mental and spiritual help of these people.
Kind of a holistic approach to a disaster.
Yes.
Yeah, this is just
Holistic
human beings
approach.
helping other human beings in an honest and genuine and authentic way. And that's amazing to me.
We do a lot of training missions and stuff too. We have our own training, and of course, sometimes we'll coexist with the government. And when they'll do a training, a couple weeks ago, this is kind of interesting. We did a training mission in one of the. I'm not gonna really mention the parish, but it was
That's
in
okay.
one of the parishes in South Louisiana, and they asked us to go over there and kind of monitor what they were doing. They had a gym, and they were doing the Red Cross was there, GoSep was there, they had some other agencies there. Animal Society was there, and everybody. They had these actors, they call them, where they would have volunteers, and they would give them a card, and your card would say, "I've got a broken leg, I'm having chest pains," and so they would fill them in their information, and they would send them to the area where they had to go. Well, when you do that, you have to use real time.
Mm-hmm.
So they asked us what we can do to help, and I said, "We'll send the actors. We'll send a lot of actors in there." So I just got finished speaking a couple weeks prior to a nursing home. I said, let's get these nursing home people in there.
Oh,
So we
wow.
had 2 buses, 76 people in 2 buses from 2 nursing homes in South Louisiana. And they came in there. And what do you have in a nursing home? Wheelchairs, people with oxygen masks.
That's right.
So when they pulled up there, the government guys there, they got kind of a little perturbed with us.
Sure.
And I said, hey, you want a real-time thing? I don't need no cards to say this guy needs a wheelchair and he's, heavy set and he needs help. So they kind of got a little perturbed with us, but that's what you got to do. If you want to
that's
do
real
a training,
That's
you gotta
real
do
life.
real
Thank
life.
you. It's
I
not
mean-
this little card and you're going to, that's like going through the McDonald's drive through and then saying, please pull up to the next window because you're stopping the clock time and you're showing good numbers. That's all those little cards are. And everybody gets to beat their chest and say, look how good
Yes.
I'm doing here. We saved these many heart attacks. We saved these broken bones and you didn't have real time.
I'll tell you
don't
what
know
else
what
we
you
did.
really did.
I'll tell you what else we did. I gave, off the record, we gave a couple of them a few dollars. This one guy, he was pretty large in a wheelchair. And I gave him a few dollars and I said, hey, sir, I said, that restroom over there, I said, go over there and start yelling and screaming that the restroom ain't working. So he went over there and he started yelling, hey, the can ain't working. It was the most confusion look on everybody's face there in the gym. And they looked at me and they said, is it real? I said, I don't know. The poor guy in the wheelchair. And they went over there and it took him about 15 minutes to realize he was lying, but it was part of the exercise,
Sure.
So what better way to do an exercise than with real people, that are really having a problem. And a couple of the people there with the government, bless their souls, the average age of them, if you added 2 of them together, you might have got 35. And these were guys that were in charge of this,
Sure.
situation. So a lot of these people are working off of school book and textbook things where we're working off of real time. You got a shelter in Hurricane Florence in 2018. We was in Wilmington, North Carolina in this little church. And it was about 50 of us from Louisiana. We brought boats up there and we were rescuing. Needless to say, before we knew it, we got over 200 people in that church. The roof is leaking. There's dogs everywhere. There's animals everywhere. People yelling, people screaming. And we didn't know what to do with them, And so when you look at real time, the government will sit there with a little pen and piece of paper, turning people away with dogs and animals and stuff like that. And we took care of it, and we saved a lot of lives. And sometimes rules are made to be broken. Russell Honore told me this many, many times. He says, rules are made to be broken. Rules are for normal times. Sure, you're not supposed to speed, but if your wife's pregnant or if you got a broken leg or you're having a heart attack and you speed, you know what I'm saying? It's just part of life, So a lot of times we break the law or we skirt the law sometimes, but it's always in the
Your heart's
lives.
in the right place. You're
Right.
trying to save lives. You're doing what you have to do to mitigate a disaster.
That's correct.
Right.
Now, I did get in trouble one time. I called a high government official in North Carolina an idiot. I didn't know he was a government official, but he was an idiot.
Well, didn't General Honore too? He
says a lot of times.
he called the press a bunch of he told one of those press people, that's a stupid question. I ain't talking to you. No
I'll tell
more."
you one thing. I got a lot of respect for him.
I
We was in
loved him.
Wilmington, North Carolina, and it was 3 a.m. in that church going back to it. We got all these people in there, and I didn't know what to do with them. The cops didn't know what to do. Law enforcement didn't know what to do. Nobody knew what to do. They all looked at me, and I'm like, I'm from Louisiana. I got a duffel bag. I came here 2 days ago. I called General Honore at 3 a.m, and I said, General, I've never been in a bind like this before. I said, there's people everywhere. The roof's leaking. He said, damn it, what do you need? I said, I don't know where to bring these people. He says, get them ready. I said, where are we going to bring him? He said, just get him ready. And you had to been in that situation to see all these people. 45 minutes later, he calls me back. He says, get him at the door. It's storming everywhere. The roof's leaking, people crying and everything. They come in these 2 big military buses. Don't know where they came from. Still don't know. And we got them on them buses and got them out.
Wow.
So I don't know where he pulled them from or whatever, but there was about 200 lives that night that were saved.
All it takes is the right person making the right phone call. It's amazing how things work.
That was an impressive figure. He wasn't just amazing.
I tell you what, during Katrina, a lot of people don't understand. It was bad. You know, I'm not a veteran myself. I can't ever say that I have. You know, a lot of people think United Cajun Navy that we're veterans, and we have a lot of veterans. But he told me, he says he would be honored to say that I served combat with him anytime during Katrina. And we saw a lot of stuff.
Right.
I mean, I can tell you we saw a lot of people shot. Unfortunately, we were getting shot at a lot. I remember the second night we came in an airboat, and they were yelling at us with these big spotlights. I didn't know what we were doing. I thought we ran over somebody or something. And he says, get over here. We had 6 holes in the rudders of our airboat. Didn't even know it.
Wow.
So that's when he put snipers basically on all of our boats, you know, at night to make sure we were safe. So, but yeah, he's a real deal.
Was this like the 9th Ward area? Or was this, I mean, where was it
Canal?
downtown?
Canal? Yes,
Yeah.
Canal was terrible.
I had a place in the French Quarter, and I was living in Florida at the time. And to go check on my place, I had to get a couple of my former police and military friends. We were full body armor in the French Quarter on Canal Street to go check on my place and make sure that everything was okay there. We were in full body armor with rifles and everything. We were questioned. When they realized who we were let through. But that was a mess.
I can tell you
It wasn't
this much.
just the 9th Ward wasn't the only bad area.
No, it was Canal.
It was
and-
Canal.
It was all bad.
And that's one of the things I think it was Kip Holden at when the Superdome was having its problems. They said, well, we need to borrow your Centroplex.
I think
He said, no. He said, no. He says, I see what y'all did to yours. This is for my citizens of Baton Rouge and Louisiana, in our area. We're not going to destroy it like you destroyed your Superdome.
Yes, that's correct.
And so he stood up and told him no. But that whole area, it wasn't just the 9th Ward. That was a bad area, obviously. But all of New Orleans was in a bad way.
I tell you what, we have very limited videos and pictures back then because social media wasn't really around during Katrina like it is nowadays. And I have a few pictures or whatever. We have a video out that you can go to YouTube. It's called Legendary. And if you Google United Cajun Navy Legendary, it brings up a pretty good video. There was pictures of bodies floating, and 2 and 3 days later when the water was going down, these bodies were hung up on fences. So we had bodies that were hung up on fences. So we were actually going over fences on top of bodies in a lot of cases. And it was just a surreal sight. I hope in our generation, in our lifetime, I hope I never see that again because it was bad. One thing, too, what a lot of people don't understand is New Orleans culture, there's a lot of corner grocery stores and corner stores. A lot of them stay open 24 hours. So people don't have to go to Costco and they don't have to go to Walmart or it's just in their nature. So when they ran out of food, they didn't get food ahead of time. They didn't stock up for days ahead. So when they were out of food, the stores were closed. And then the looting began. You know, and a lot of times you can't blame somebody when you're in a situation and the store's destroyed and everything around, going there and taking a few things that you need. None of us had a problem with any of that. The problem was these guys and girls and people coming out of these Foot Lockers and stuff with Michael Jordans and Air Jordans with 10 of them on a thing laughing and cutting up about it. That's when it really hit the fan down there, you know. But I hope we'll never see that in our lifetime because it's not something that I'd ever want to be around again.
That's a mess.
That was a terrible time. I would never want to see that again, ever.
Yeah.
No.
That was that was.
We saw a little bit of that in Hurricane Harvey in some of the areas. Not to the extent, but there was some areas in Harvey that was pretty bad. And a couple of us we didn't get shot at, but a couple of our volunteers got shot at. You know.
Man.
Now Harvey, when did Harvey hit?
2017.
Okay,
that was the year after the flood.
Okay, y'all were probably involved heavily with Gustav, huh?
Gustav was more of a wind event. You know, it was more of trees down everywhere. You know, and like I said, everybody thinks of Cajun Navy as boat rescues, but we do so much more. We do a lot of road clearing and stuff like that.
I'm curious. You know, you've talked a good bit about what y'all do as far as the kind of the expanded role than just simply going in with boats and rescuing people. Where do you see the Cajun Navy going in the future?
That's a great question.
That's a very good question.
What would you like to see it kind of evolve into.
I think what's happened is, and let's get back to social media a minute. There's so many people out there, a lot of storm chasers. And what I see the direction of what we're doing during a disaster is a lot of these storm chasers, they're the ones that want to go get on the front line. Like right now in Cedar Key, that's where Jim Cantor and all the storm chasers are going.
Right.
Because they want to get the eye coming across. They want to get the money shot. So what I see going on is people are wanting to see that action. They're wanting to see that eye coming through, and they're wanting to see the house get destroyed and the beach get pushed off into the ocean. And what it's doing is it's taking away from some of what we're doing, where we're trying to get support for people to give donations and stuff to help people. So a lot of people are giving their money to these storm chasers and stuff, and there's nothing against them. There's definitely a need for that, you know. So we're at a crossroads right now of trying to get involved with some of this storm chasing stuff, but also knowing that it's dangerous. You know, my biggest fear is these guys in Cedar Key right now and stuff. They're I wouldn't be over there.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, that's a disaster. It's going.
Mm-hmm.
You keep testing nature like that, I think eventually there's going to be a disaster. One of those people are going to get killed or something to that effect. And
Hurricane Sally
there's going to be lawsuits, and there's going to. I mean, it's going to be bad because
Hurricane Sally a few years ago. We was in Orange Beach over there by Floribama. And thank God they had a 3-story garage near we can fall back to. They were expecting 6 to 8 foot of surge. And, you know, we always go 3 or 4 foot above that. I think they had 15, 16 foot of surge. Mm-hmm. And if it wouldn't have been a garage up there for us to all get in, we'd all be drowned. So that's when I realized, you know, I don't want the money shots. We don't want to get out there and show the eye coming through. Let them do that.
Right.
You know, we're like right now, we're trying to figure on where to stage for Florida, because with Florida, especially when you get down into the Big Bend area and further south, all you can go is north-south. You can't go east and west. And if you don't make a call, that's something else too, with the government trusting and us not trusting the government and people not trusting the government. If they tell you to get out and the storm doesn't hit, the next time you're not going to listen.
Right.
Or if they tell you to get out and you don't get out, you're going to drown. So that's our biggest fear, is that we're going to have some storms. And it's happened before. Mm-hmm. You know, where people don't trust the government because everybody's saying,
that
it's going to be
Katrina.
Katrina
was a prime example of that.
That's right.
Huge example of that.
What sort of storm surge are they expecting with this storm?
Around the Big Bend area, they're 7 to 13. You know,
okay,
but that when you talk about the Big Bend, everybody knows Panama City, Destin area. That's the Panhandle. Mm-hmm. And as you go further south, there's a bend. It's kind of like an upside down hole. They call it the Big Bend. Mm-hmm. And the way this storm's going is pushing all the surge up into that Big Bend area.
It's gonna
yeah. And Tampa has never taken a direct hit. Mm. A lot of these storms, when they go into Tampa, they skirt it. So what our biggest concern now is with Tampa. If Tampa takes a direct hit, it's gone.
Yikes.
You know, and it don't need to be a 4. It can be a strong 2.
Well,
like
especially with the way this storm is hitting on the northwest side of it, as it rotates in this direction, it's going to take all of Tampa Bay and put it into Tampa.
That's correct. And, you know, you're going back to old school in Katrina, even before Katrina, a lot of people might remember Nash Roberts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nash Roberts was the old WWL reporter. Yep. He'd bring out his chalkboard.
All he needed was a little marker.
and I learned from him years and years ago, because we grew up in the seafood business. And I'll never forget, he would take the radar and he would put a dot in the center of the radar where the eye was, and he would move it. And he could tell you where that storm was going, and he was accurate all the time.
Yes, he was.
The problem is now it looks like a kindergartner sleeping at night that with a bunch of crayons.
Oh, the spaghetti.
Yeah.
The spaghetti lines all over the screen now.
Yeah, and so you know, when you talk about storm chasers and stuff, you know, everybody's working off of these models, and nobody's.
But if I may interject on that, I think that's part of the control. Mm-hmm. If it was just Nash Rogers and he was right 100% of the time, every time he told you where it went, that's where it went. But you only really scared this many people. But if you open that spaghetti model up, now you can scare a whole bunch more people. Well, I think it's a control issue.
I think it's like you said, now with the 24/7 news cycle, mm-hmm. where in the past you had a short window to get the absolute critical information out, because outside of that, you were not going to hear it.
Yep.
But now they've got all day, all hours of the night. They've got to come in, they've got to create something to get you to look, to pay advertising.
And I think that's part of it. I think it's that control.
I also wouldn't be surprised if it was like a liability thing, because they do the same thing with drugs on television. Like, if you take this drug, there's a potential that, like, you could have everything go wrong with you just in case on the off chance that like someone does have it. It's like, oh, but we warned you though. It's like I feel like it's that thing too, where it's like we can't just say, even though we have
one thing that people aren't saying too is there's still the main factor in all of this is the man upstairs.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
That's the main thing.
Right.
You know, and you know, these models are never really usually right spot on. I mean, they can come close, but look what happened with Hurricane Ian last year.
Yep.
I mean, it took a big turn at the last minute, and everybody was panicking. Now tonight, most of these storms hit at night. It's kind of crazy, like Katrina and stuff. A lot of people may be going to bed tonight thinking, oh, it's not going to hit Panama City, or oh, it's not going to hit this area. You wake up in the morning, next thing you know, you look outside, trees are down everywhere, and you can't go nowhere. You know,
heaven forbid you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and like all hell's breaking loose.
Looking at this storm, kind of following when it first kind of got spun up and all that, I'm telling you that dome of high pressure that's created that heat wave that we've been experiencing for the last 28 days or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that saved us because just looking at that thing, I'm like,
Well, yes, it's that high pressure that's pushed that storm away from us.
I think that storm wanted to come more to the central Gulf. I think it got moved.
And if you look at that thing, if Mash Roberts, going back to him, and I never forget, he's saying you got to put yourself in the mind of a storm. And if you look at that storm yesterday morning, it was moving south, and then it moved west, and then it moved southeast, and then it came north. It's almost like it was trying to get his mind together, saying we're going to go in this direction. So there's always that man upstairs factor, you know. But this one here is going to be a tough situation for that Big Bend.
How many people will y'all mobilize for?
Right now we have 72.
Okay.
Mobilized.
Wow.
Is that from our area or
that's
different areas?
That's from all over the country.
Okay.
We have an airboat team coming in from Tennessee, which what you got to understand is it's alligator season right now that just started in the state or is about to start. You know, so these guys aren't going to take their boats and go over there. They want to catch alligators.
Right. That's where they're making their
So we've got our airboat teams coming in from Tennessee. We've got our veterans coming in from Houma, Louisiana. We've got some coming in from Mississippi. We have a lot of people in the Panhandle that have boats and airboats and different things, charter boat guys that are going to be helping. We have guys flying in from the Carolinas. One thing we got to be careful of, this storm looks like Idalia, however you say it, it looks like it's going to be hurricane force winds when it hits Georgia even. They're talking about it hitting South Carolina, North Carolina, and around the Wilmington area, 12 to 15 inches of rain going back into the Atlantic and coming back around and hitting Florida again like Ike did in 2004.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yes. But there's even rumors, one of the models, and I mean, of course, getting to the models, it's saying it's going to hit Texas again once it comes back in. Of course, that might be a little far-fetched, but reality is when you start looking at the upper level,
the steering
that's
currents
going up there, it's actually going to, when it hits that Atlantic, it's going to come back around somewhere. So it could be hitting the east coast of Florida again next week.
Crazy. Well, if I may say, what if there are people out there that are looking to get involved or want to help out? How could you point them in the right direction to help get
You can go to our website, www.unitedcajunnavy.org. Facebook is our main way of getting stuff out. You can go there and send us a message. But if you go to our website, there's a volunteer. You can sign up to be a volunteer. You can make a donation. Or you can request assistance. We have request assistance forms.
That's cool.
And a lot of the request assistance forms are people that may have had a tree on their house or they need a step built or sandbags. We do a lot of sandbags too.
Right.
We did, I think, the last storm we had here a couple years ago, we did almost 100,000 sandbags with volunteers. In Florida right now, some of the government areas where they're giving sandbags, they have a 10 sandbag limit. You know,
what 10 sandbags gonna do for you?
Yeah, and
10 sandbags ain't gonna do your front door.
So we'll get a lot of football teams and stuff that come in there, and we'll
right.
just fill them up. You got to think too. There's a lot of elderly people out there, husband and wife, or even a lot of women whose husbands have passed away and they need help. So we'll go deliver them to them and different things like that. So, but yeah, www.unitedcajunnavy.org. We're always looking for volunteers, and not just during disasters, but year round.
Right.
Right now, we get a lot of donations in, believe it or not, of jackets and coats, brand new stuff.
Right.
It needs to be sorted and separated and you know, gotten ready for the holidays. We're always one season behind or one season ahead.
Right.
Come the winter, we'll be getting, you know, shorts and tank tops in and stuff.
Well, they're talking about this might be a bad winter.
Oh, I saw
So you
that.
might be dealing with ice and busted pipes. And
I even heard one of my meteorologist friends talking about a blizzard coming down as far as us.
That's crazy. You know, here it is 105. Now, that's something else, too.
Yeah.
These warehouses we have are like ovens. You know, they're metal roofs, metal walls. it's 105 outside, it's 130 in the warehouses.
Right.
And you put fans in there, and all it does is blow the hot air on you.
It just makes it a convection oven.
Yeah.
at that
So,
point.
so we're really struggling with volunteers right now.
Okay.
We get a lot of kids, we get a lot of elderly people, and they can't volunteer. You know, right now. So we're in a bind. We have a lot of donations that need to be sorted, and we're just hoping that the weather starts to cool off a little bit in the next 30, 45 days, because we're going to be in a bind with donations that aren't sorted.
Right. That's crazy. Well, I appreciate you coming out here and talking about all this stuff, because it's really awesome to hear and to see there's people out there that are truly just trying to make a difference and trying to help out, even if there are other powers at play that are trying to stop you guys from doing things. It's nice to see that you know, despite all that, you're still just trying to help
gives
people.
you hope for humanity.
You know, good
And
news doesn't go as fast as bad news travels.
Of course.
You go to the grocery
Always.
store and the National Enquirer's there, aliens coming and taking over the world. You know, you don't ever see Cajun Navy rescues people. You just see the bad news.
I had a friend of mine who was a business professor, and he told me this one little story, and I'll share it with you. He said, good news, good advertisement. If you have a customer that comes in that has a positive outlook on your business, that's worth about $5,000 to $10,000 in advertising, because they're only going to tell people when they have an opportunity to talk about your business. But if you have a customer that comes in that has a bad experience in your business, he said that can be worth $50,000 to $100,000 in advertisement, and bad advertisement, because they're going to tell everybody about
That's
it.
right.
I think
And so-
back when you go back to the college days of LSU, I mean, I'll never forget this. Jenny Peters, everybody knows, a big runner. I had a speech class, and she was a teacher. And this was before social media. I think this was before flip phones. It's been so long ago. Jason would appreciate that when you're talking about old people.
Oh,
It
wow.
was something, I don't remember the exact numbers. I think it was like if you got a bad hamburger in a restaurant, like, you know, 20-something people would hear about it. And if you had a good experience, maybe 3 would hear about it. And that was before social media came out. So, you know, in today's world, you can be ruined with one bad complaint over a competitor or something. And it's not fair, but unfortunately, it's just the world today.
I think it's always been that way. I feel like people always just like to talk bad about stuff.
And I like to talk good about stuff. I am so excited about this opportunity to sit down with you. And just one of the things about this podcast is people love us because we're very authentic and genuine in our attitudes and our relationships with people. And this was just an amazing opportunity to sit down with you 20 years after the start of the Cajun Navy.
Right.
That's right.
And
I never
talk
would have thought
about
we'd
it.
have got to this point. I can tell you that much.
See, that's
never would have thought. I mean, we got our own 18-wheelers.
Crazy.
Which is really crazy. And,
It's just amazing to sit and talk about the ground floor and how it started and where
It's
you
been a
hope
lot
to
of
see it
blood,
go.
sweat, and tears. I can tell you,
Yeah.
it wasn't all good. I mean, you know, I've been a victim of cyber stalking. You know, there's a lot of hate in the world nowadays. But there's always that one person that you save that comes back years later and says thank you, and it makes everything else go away.
Right.
Right. I get that.
That's amazing. Thank you for coming
Well,
on
thank you
today.
for
Thank
having
you
me.
for taking
Todd,
the time.
thank you for coming, brother.
Yeah, no problem.
Well-
And I'm going to be up a while with this coffee y'all gave me.
and you're actually, if you ever want to put something back out there, you have our numbers. If you
Okay.
ever want to come back on and have something to discuss, let us know.
I'll tell you what, I want to get you in touch with our Vice President, Brian Thrasher. You know, he's more political, and he can tell you some stuff. He can tell you some stuff. And I think with Jim Bob, you're going to love Jim Bob at Redneck Adventures. He needs to be on your podcast to interview him because of the stuff that's going on, especially like with the kids with these fishing tournaments and stuff. Not every kid has the same opportunity we have. I was fortunate to grow up with a grandfather and a father that taught us fishing and took us fishing all the time. Kids nowadays don't have that opportunity.
Right.
You know, and so there was a fishing tournament a few months ago up in Vidalia in Natchez area where there was over $500,000 in scholarships raised by kids fishing from the bank.
Wow.
That's
You know,
incredible.
bank fishing. So
amazing.
Jim Bob would be a really good one for y'all to have.
I'd love to have them.
Interesting.
Well, but if you want to come back on, this is an open invite. Let us
Yeah.
know. And
We might have to come back on after this week over there in Florida. There's no telling.
I would
Yeah.
love,
Yeah.
actually,
You know,
I'd love a follow up.
that would be a great follow up. I
Yeah.
think.
I'll tell you what, we
with
got a storm coming behind this one too. A lot of people don't understand. There's going to be a tail off of this storm that's going to come off of it. We're going to have one in the Gulf next week too.
I would like a follow up on the Florida and the Maui stuff. If you could get some stuff together, that would be an amazing follow up to this. Because that's good information.
Yes,
People
it
need to
is.
know that.
Yeah.
People need to know what's going on. And then in this world of instant gratification and instant news and instant information, I think that would be impressive if you. I know you're busy. You got 6 phones on the table and they all been going off at the same time. If you could find the time to join us again, I think that would be fantastic.
That's CNN blowing me up on one of the phones. I mean, and hey, look, Donald Trump said it best. There's no such thing as bad publicity when you're doing the right thing.
That's right.
That's right.
As long as we're not caught with a live boy or a dead girl, we good.
Okay, well, so basically, if anybody's looking to reach out to us, we do have a Facebook page /Retrospect Pod where you can go ahead and give us your comments or suggestions for shows, or if you have a more lengthy question or response that you want to give us, we have an email at getoffendedtogether@gmail.com. But anyways, until next week, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. God bless.
Thank y'all.
You're the best. Peace.